Hey guys, this is the WalterFootball.com After Dark show for June 9th, 2023. It's our Wildcard Wednesday, which we're doing on Thursday. So we're doing top 10 TV shows that jumped the shark, or I guess you could say like collapsed. Jump the shark, by the way, is reference to Happy Days when Fonzie actually jumped over a shark. And that kind of like sparked the end of Happy Days. So it's kind of what you call when a TV show collapses. So we're going to get into our top 10 TV shows that jumped the shark. I'm joined by Kenny Ortiz from thecapIsFake.com. Kenny, how are you?
I'm living a dream. I'm drinking Diet Coke tonight, not wine. Sometimes you got to just put the red wine down and drink the aspartame. You know, it's good for you. That's what I heard. It's nutritious. And I'm moving in 3 weeks. I'm moving cross country from Minnesota to Florida. And so we're getting our house ready, painting, and we got to replace some carpets because our dog peed all over it. You know, fun stuff.
Yeah, great times. So we're actually doing stuff around the house too because we're expecting our second child. So I'm cleaning out my office, and I'm gonna be down in the basement. That's gonna be my new office. I'm like the stapler guy from Office Space, like permanently stuck in the basement here. So I hear you on that. But congratulations on the move, and how excited are you that you don't have to spend another winter in Minnesota?
Oh man, I mean, 11 out of 10. I got a lot of great friends here, you know, so I'm going to miss friends. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to miss Minnesota landscape / winter / frozen everything, you know, brown snow piles all around until May. I'm not going to miss that at all.
Yeah. I was in Minnesota for 3 days for the Super Bowl 5 years ago. So 5 years ago, it's kind of crazy now.
Yeah.
And the only thing I remember is that like I almost died in the cold because someone took my coat at a party, and I had to like walk to the train station in just the suit, and like it was -5 degrees out. It was horrible. There was actually a button at the train station that says "push for heat." I was like, which I've never seen before. And it was just so brutal. And actually at this party, someone we were expecting to meet, Charlie and I were expecting to meet there. He showed up 2 hours late, and we're like, what happened? He's like, my Uber driver hit us at a pole because of the snow. And we're like, oh, okay. This is like, all right, let's never do a Super Bowl in Minnesota again.
It's a terrible idea. I don't get it. It's an awful idea.
I know. And like we were actually considering going to the Super Bowl. And well, there were two reasons why we didn't go. Like first, the upcharge on the ticket sales. But second, we would have to wait outside for like an hour plus for security. And I was like, dude, it's like -5. I don't want to wait outside in the cold. So yeah, like I said, no more Super Bowls up north in Minnesota. And I'm glad that you don't have to endure another winter. But yeah, let's get to the top 10 TV shows that jump the shark. Before we do, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Visit the link in the description for the merch store. All that would mean a lot. We have Patrick saying, True Blood, easily for me. Seasons 1 and 2 were amazing. Then HBO did HBO things and introduced Werepanthers. That is an example of a TV show jumping the shark, Werepanthers. Before we get into the top 10, do you have any honorable mentions? Because I have I have 10 honorable mentions myself.
I do have some honorable mentions. I have honorable mentions, kind of. Okay, so what I meant, these are shows. Actually, let me take that back. I don't have any honorable mentions of my own. I have a bunch of shows that I've heard other people mention that I'm like, I'm not sure actually are fair. So I kind of want to explain that for a moment. Mm-hmm. Okay, so when we talk about this, we're like we're going to do the top 10 shows. I think you usually originally use the term fell off a cliff, right? That was like the kind of. To me, I took the word cliff very literally. Well, not literally, but I took it. Like a show has to be high for it to fall off of a big cliff. So like if a show was just always mediocre and then like the last season sucked, well, that's not a cliff. It just, that's what it is. So I think there's a lot of people that look at shows that were mediocre and then got bad. I'm like, well, that's lots of mediocre shows turn bad. Like, I was really thinking about shows that were like, progressively getting better or really good or even getting better, and then all of a sudden in a very short period of time fell apart. Like that was kind of my thought. So like I've heard people mention like Succession on HBO that just had its last season. Like it's okay, it's a good show, not a great show. That doesn't really qualify. I think True Blood is an example. Like I don't know, like with all due respect, I don't think the first season was all that great. It was fine. It's a fine show. Ted Lasso, people are dogging on. I'm like, it's cute, it's funny, but it's not amazing. Like, I think people have unrealistic expectations. I also saw someone on Twitter say that Simpsons is like the most overrated show that fell apart. I'm like, dude, the show's had 34 seasons of success. Like, what are you talking about? Like, so many, like, I don't know. Look at there's 2 categories of shows that I generally think should not count in this category. And that is basically like generic sitcoms, like 2.5 Men, How I Met Your Mother, Gilmore Girls, Big Bang Theory. These are all shows I've watched in my life. Don't judge me for watching Gilmore Girls. Anyway, like, they're not good enough to count, right? Or the other category is detective shows. So I'm thinking like Law and Order, Criminal Minds, Cold Case, Quantico, CSI, White Collar. Like, these shows are not phenomenal shows. They're fine. It's like Burger King. It's like, it'll do the trick, but you're not expecting anything amazing when you go to Burger King. It's just I need to fill my stomach. That's what Law and Order is. It's just Burger King. Like, so I think people have high expectations of these shows, and I wanted to take some time to just say, listen, people, relax.
Okay, well, fair enough. You actually mentioned one of the shows I have in my top 10 there.
Oh,
Actually, no, you mentioned 2. Now that I
that's so great. All right,
but I
don't expect anything from these shows. So if they go bad, I'm like, whatever.
Okay. Well, I mean, we'll definitely talk about it. I want to give you my 10 honorable mentions. This Is Us, great first season, and then it got bad. It didn't make the top 10 because I thought there were like some good things in the final season. So like season 3 was pretty rough, but then like the final season, it kind of redeemed itself a little bit, but not nearly as good as it was in season 1. Stranger Things, again, kind of the same thing where like season 1 was amazing. Season 2, it was bad. Season 3 was horrible. There, like the one scene in the bathroom with Steve and the girl from the ice cream shop, I think, wherever they worked. That scene I thought jumped the shark, but then season 4 redeemed itself. I thought season 4 was pretty decent. Not nearly as good as season 1, but so that's why it didn't make my top 10 because it seemed to get better. So I have some hope for Stranger Things. Now we have the Danny Masterson special. We have that 70s Show and The Ranch. So that 70s Show fell apart because the guy who played Eric Foreman left, and also obviously Kelso, played by Ashton Kutcher, he left as well in the final season, and then Seth Meyers came in, and as you would expect with anything having to do with Seth Meyers, it was just brutal.
I didn't realize he was on that show. That's so weird.
Yeah, he played Randy in the final season, and he was just like the worst character, one of the worst characters ever. If we ever do a top 10 worst characters, I think he'd top 10 worst characters on good TV shows, he'd probably make the cut.
Ooh, that's a great episode, by the way. That's a great.
Yeah,
topic.
we'll have to do that. We'll have to do that next time. Also, The Ranch. So Danny Masterson was on this show as well until he was got into trouble for I think he's actually convicted for rape, I think. So now he won't be doing The Ranch. I think The Ranch is done too. The Ranch was really good for a few seasons. The dynamic between Ashton Kutcher's character, Danny Masterson's character, and their father on the show was just fantastic. And then when Masterson left, they tried to replace him with like a weird cousin, and just it didn't work. It was just we stopped watching it. My wife and I loved the show. We just stopped. How to Get Away with Murder, great first season, and then it just like got so repetitive, and it's like we stopped watching that as well. Killing Eve, another one that was like the first 2 seasons were good, especially the first season, and then I just got so bored. I was like, my wife wanted to watch it. I'm like, this is not good anymore. She's like, yeah, you're right. So we stopped watching that as well. Desperate Housewives. I feel like they did too many crazy things. Like the first season was a great mystery about like why the narrating woman killed herself. And then even the second season, there was like this family moves into the neighborhood, and like you're like they're doing something strange. You hear like weird sounds coming from their house, and like it's another really cool mystery. But then like it gets worse and worse. I feel like they ran out of ideas. So that belongs on the list. And the next 2 are the trope of a character going into rich LA places, Beverly Hills 90210 and the OC. Beverly Hills 902 was awesome for a long time, and then Jason Priestley left, and then the final season was just weird. Like they brought back Dylan's dad, like he died in a plane crash, but like apparently he survived it. Like it was just so bad the final season. And then the OC, like as soon as they killed Marissa, that was it. It was just horrible. And then my top honorable mention, Once Upon a Time, it almost made my top 10. It was just like, it's so bad how like first couple seasons are great, and then the character who plays like the wicked, not the Wicked Witch, Maleficent, I think. They redeemed her character, they made her good, and then like something would happen, someone was mean to her, and then she'd revert to evil. And this happened like 5 times during the final couple seasons of the show. It's like, all right, guys, like we get it. So that is my 10 honorable mentions. Do you have any? Do you watch any of those? I know you watch some of them at least.
Yeah, some of them. Once Upon a Time, I forgot about that show. I never watched beyond season 1, and I remember liking it, but never really like. I got busy. I don't know what happened. I just never finished watching it or whatever. I even forgot that show existed. That's funny. How to Get Away with Murder, and then the other one that was similar to that. It was The Making of a Murderer. It's also a Netflix show.
Okay. And so I don't think I watched that one.
There's some comparable like sentiments there. Totally different format show, but like they were similar. I was watching them around the same time, and I forgot that show fell off the cliff. Yeah, I forgot about that. It's funny. I think that's probably. I think I saw most of those shows. Yeah, I guess some of those shows I'm just like they never were that great for me. So it's like, I'm looking for shows that were great, and I was just really disappointed in. Like that's kind of my level of thought process.
Well, I liked all these shows a lot, like when they're in their peak, and they really disappointed. You're right to stop watching Once Upon a Time, even though you probably did it accidentally. Because, like I said, that Regina character, it's like she was the bad guy in season 1, and then like she becomes good, and then someone says something bad to her, and she becomes bad. Like they did that 5 times, and it's like I get it. Like enough. Before we end the top 10, we have some comments. Stackhouse says we talked Heroes last time. I wonder if that makes the list. We will see. Patrick says Riverdale's another season 1 was good, and then there was a scene where a character said you'd never experienced the epic highs and lows of high school football. Maybe we'll get to that. And then Stackhouse says Walking Dead has some rough years, but well worth it in the end. No spoilers, please. Well, I mean, there will be some spoilers. We won't spoil Walking Dead because I didn't finish it. So, but like we might talk about some spoilers in the show just accidentally. Like we're not going to intentionally do it. But anyway, like we can get into our top 10. Do you want to lead us off with your number 10?
Yeah, my number 10 is a show on Netflix called The 100. Have you ever seen this show?
No. I've never heard of it.
Really? Okay, that's funny. It's been on a couple of years. There's several seasons. The first season, the premise in the first season, I'll say this: the premise of the show and the first like 2 episodes are phenomenal. I was hooked immediately, and then like pretty much from episode 3 to like episode 12, it kind of just like progressively started, and then it was like okay, but like it still got me, and then like season 2 was just terrible. So like the cliff was really fast. It was like really good and then really bad and really fast. It kind of was so I didn't even make it beyond season 2. The premise of the show, if anyone's not ever seen this. Basically, the Earth is there's nuclear war on the Earth, and some other stuff that happened in the Earth, and the Earth is uninhabitable, and so humanity, the U.S. government, and some other people decide to send a crew of humans up to a space station for 100 years in order to let Earth like heal, so before it's inhabitable again, and then so there's like a couple thousand people to go live on the space station while the Earth is like uninhabitable. Well, you find out that they run out of resources on the spaceship, and they have to kill people that are using up too many resources. It's really just this tragic, horrifying moment. And then they decide, we got to send some people down. They send 100 teenagers that were in prison teenagers that had done, illegal stuff on the spaceship. They send them down to Earth. And so it's basically the premise of the show is them trying to live on Earth, trying to figure it out if it's inhabitable before they send, the rest of the crew down from the spaceship. And it's actually and then you find out there's actually been humans. It wasn't as bad as people thought it was. There's different segments, kind of like The Walking Dead in that you get like that different groups of people. And so anyway, the premise is really good. You'll watch the first 2 or 3 episodes and be like, wow, could be a really good show. And then by the end of season 1, you're like, wow, that was a really terrible, bad cliff. So, the 100.
I really dislike those dystopian TV shows where they have like weird groups and like they do weird things like This Is Us, not This Is Us, The Last of Us. The Last of Us did that. And then like Walking Dead does that all the time. It's like, oh, we're the scorpions, we do this, like we're the butterflies, like it's just so weird. Like, why would that happen? I try to get into The Last of Us. I said I was going to do it after I played the video game, but then Zelda came out, so I'm kind of stuck with that. So I was like, all right, my wife and I were like, all right, let's watch The Last of Us. We heard bad things. We also heard some good things. And we didn't even make it until the end of season, until the second episode.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I would say that like the first 45 minutes of it really good. Like when they're being when they're chased by those fungi zombie things. But then when they go into the future and like this guy's like doing illegal things, like trying to get around like the authoritarians, whatever they're called. They're like, we're the butterflies, we're trying to smuggle like this girl. Like it's like, oh, come on, like they've done that so many times in so many shows. Like I'm so sick of this. So
the butterflies.
I don't know what they're called. What are they called?
They're called fireflies, but butterflies.
There you go. Yeah. So, I was close. I strongly dislike that. I can't get into shows like that anymore. Like if I see any hints of it, I'm out. I'm completely out. So
well, you'll definitely not like the 100.
Yeah, that's what I was about to get to. I don't think I can ever get to the 100. But I don't know. It's like I could understand people liking it. I just don't like. It's been done so many times. I just can't.
It has. You're right.
Yeah. Actually, I did not save this. Okay. My number 10 is How I Met Your Mother. So this is what you mentioned in your honorable mentions. We'll get right to it. So like I thought this is one, like you said that you didn't expect much from sitcoms, and I think for the most part you're right. Like, you know, most sitcoms are just like, oh, let's sit down for a half hour, just laugh and just like go about our way. Like I thought How I Met Your Mother was different because there was like some mystery involved. It's like I would always have discussions with my friends watching the show live. Like, oh, who do you think the mother is and stuff like that? Do you think it's Robin? Do you think it's like so-and-so? So we talk about that. And like not only is the show funny, but like the characters are great. And like I thought the show was just like interesting and thought-provoking. It's not, I don't think it was like other sitcoms. Right. So like when they got to the final season, you know, obviously we were like, okay, what's going to happen here? Like how is like Ted gonna meet the mother, etc. Like there's a lot of mysteries left to unpack. And what they did for the final season was they spent the entire season on Barney and Robin's wedding. Like two characters you knew weren't going to last together because they both had commitment issues. So they spent the whole last season on the just the wedding, a three-day wedding. And it was just a failure because in the final episode they just split apart after 15 minutes, and you're like, so I dedicated a whole season just for this. And not only that, like there's one scene in the final season where Ted lets like balloons go, and it's supposed to symbolize that he's finally let go of Robin, because like she was never realistic for him because he always held her to a higher standard, and like she could never live up to it. So like it was like him finally acknowledging that, and the fact that he did that, he would be allowed to meet his mother. And so like that was the whole point of that. Like it was like I thought that was great. Like it's like the one good thing of the final season. And then he met his mother because he finally let Robin go. And then they just completely undid that in the final episode, where like the whole point of him talking to his kids in the future was to get permission to go after Robin again. It's like it's just so bad. Like they just ended it so poorly, where the show had so much promise. And like this is a show I still love. Like I'll still go back and watch it. They had so many funny episodes, but then it's just so tainted by the final season. It just I just can't get over how poorly it finished.
Funny. So okay, I came up with my list on my own, and then I decided earlier today, this afternoon, I was like, I'm just going to see what other people say. So I Googled, and I shows that fell apart, shows that collapsed, shows that, I mean, I use all these whatever. And then I probably saw like a dozen different articles from different websites. So I'm just looking through the list. How I Met Your Mother was on almost every list. I mean,
Really?
I looked at like 10 or 12 lists. I mean, it was on every list. And I kept thinking, it was one of the reasons why I mentioned it, because it was like, this show was so commonly being mentioned. And I'm just like, I guess I just don't expect that much from these shows. And like, I've watched the show a handful of times. I've watched not a bunch, here and there. I've watched, it's on, but it's good. I think it's funny. I was never invested, so maybe I never felt what other guys are feeling. But yeah, I guess I just have a totally different expectation of it. But you are in the majority, because I think almost every list I saw today had that show mentioned, at some point.
This was like an appointment television for me. How I Met Your Mother. It was like it used to come on 8 o'clock on CBS on Mondays, and from the beginning, like I watched the first episode live when I was still at Penn State, actually. And I made sure to watch every episode. Like I didn't miss a single episode of this show. Like I really loved it. I was so invested in it, and so were my friends. Like I said, we would have discussions about the show all the time. It wasn't like on the level like Lost or Game of Thrones or anything, but like it was for a sitcom. It was like top tier. So like that's what I said before. It's like I think you're right for the most part, not to expect much from sitcoms, but I thought this and one other show were on another level.
It's really interesting. I mean, and obviously a lot of people agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't mean we're right. Like usually the majority is wrong, but so I'll cede to you on this one. All right. What is your number 9?
Number 9. One of the comments mentioned it. It's Heroes. We mentioned that we talked about it in previous episodes. Heroes season 1 was on one of my greatest, on my top 10 of seasons list ever. Loved that show. And then I thought seasons 2 and 3 were fine, and then it just completely fell apart. Toward the end of season 3, it got boring. Season 4 was just like, it's like leg day. I don't want to do this. This is the worst. And it's really sad because I loved season 1 so much, and I thought there was great promise, and it just totally fell apart. So yeah, loved it. Season 4 was awful. Totally fell off a cliff.
Yeah. We might get to Heroes later in my top 10, but rather than skip around, I think we should just go sequentially. So my number 9 is Billions, the show on I think it's Showtime, starring Damian Lewis, the guy from Homeland, the redheaded guy. So like the premise of the show is this guy's a billionaire hedge fund manager. And he's trying to elude Paul Giamatti's character, who works for the I don't know if he works for the SEC. I don't think he's the SEC. I think he's something else. I forget. Anyway, like it's like cat and mouse game between them. And like you see how Damian Lewis runs his firm at the Axelrod is his name. And then like Giamatti's character, like he's like, you see how he's trying to take down Damian Lewis. It's like, it's great characters, great acting. I thought it's phenomenal. But then like, I never even finished the final season of it because for a couple of reasons. Like, first of all, Damian Lewis's character, Damian Lewis like quit the show. So they had someone else take his place instead. And it had I know it had the Eric Foreman to Seth Meyers effect that I talked about from that 70s show. Just like a character who like he had some promise. Like he was in it beforehand. It's not like they just introduced him as a new like fresh, but like he just didn't fit as the main character. He just wasn't like the actor. I mean, the actor is a good actor. It just like the character himself wasn't that interesting, and so I just wasn't fully invested in it. And also, I was really looking forward to the final season because I thought they might look into or like delve into like short selling and like the meme stocks and stuff like that. That the AMC and GameStop especially GameStop, they took down like 4 hedge funds. Like they completely were wiped out because of the naked short selling. So I thought like that would be interesting to see, like maybe not Damian Lewis, but this replacement like try to navigate through the short sellers and like maybe I thought it would be funny if like Damian Lewis went from a billionaire to bankrupt because of the short sellers, and that's how the series would end. Like not Giamatti stopping him; it would be his own greed. Like I thought that would be a perfect ending to the show. Instead, the new character was obsessed with bringing the Olympics to New York. It's like this is so stupid. Like no one cares about the Olympics. First of all, people pretend they care about the Olympics, but they don't. And it's like why would New York handle the Olympics? Like there's so much like traffic and like and it's so congested already. Like it would be a disaster to host it there. So yeah, I couldn't get into that. Paul Giamatti was still good. But like him not chasing after Damian Lewis's character, it's just like, oh, why does he care about this new guy? I don't know. It's really bad ending to the show.
I never even heard of that, by the way.
Never heard of Billions, really?
No.
Oh, I highly recommend it. It's really good.
Paul Giamatti is I think an underrated actor, by the way.
Yeah, he's great.
He's great in a lot of things.
Yeah, he's awesome on the show. Like you really want to hate him so bad. But like he's so perfect in how he plays the government agent. I know we're super against that, but then again, like we're also I don't know about you, but like also super against the $1 billion hedge fund guy who like short sells. And like they kind of explain how he got rich. It's not like a spoiler, but like he shorted the all the plane companies when like 9/11 happened, and so so they were wondering like, oh, did he know something about that? So so people he gets a lot of flack for that in the show too. So he's like not the most beloved guy either.
I appreciate any TV show that helps people realize there's no like in life. There's not really clear good guys and bad guys. And I think so many TV shows, like there's clear good guys and bad guys. And you're like, that's just not real life. In real life, it's much more nuanced and messy and gray. And really most people are just variations of bad guys. There's just badder guys.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of the best shows do that. Game of Thrones is a classic example. It's like, it's like, you want to say the Lannisters are the bad guys, but like, only because they're opposed to the Starks, who like you say are the good guys, but then like the Starks do some bad stuff, Lannisters do some good stuff. So I definitely agree with that. All right, so what's your number 8?
My number 8 is I'm bringing up the bro quotient here. That is Entourage. Did you ever watch Entourage?
Yeah, I watched the entire series. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I love the first few seasons. I thought it was so entertaining, and really love some of the characters. And I think the show got progressively better. Man, it just got really good. And then like all of a sudden in season 5, it was like hit a couple moments like, Vince is a drug problem. What? Like, what do care? What? It's just these, and there's all this focus on Eric and Turtle. I'm just like, I just want more Vince. Just give me more Vince. Give me more, like, I don't know. Like, listen, when you got like 4 or 5 episodes in a season focus on Turtle's limo business, stop it. Side note, in my late 20s, I was at a bar in Philadelphia. I was at Whiskey Tango's. I don't know if you've ever been there or not.
I live right across the street from it, so I used to go there all the time.
So I was
it's not there anymore, but yeah.
I was. It's not there anymore.
Well, it was real quick. So it went from Whiskey Tango to just Tango. Then it went to It was called Bull Shooters, and then it went back to Tango, and then it closed down during the pandemic, and I don't think it's open anymore.
So I used to frequent there regularly back in the day, and it's been like 13 years probably. But anyway, I was there when they this was when I had a beard that was not white. Anyway, I walked in, I was wearing a hat, and some guy was like, "Bro, has anyone ever told you look just like Turtle from Entourage?" I was like, "No, that's not a compliment." Anyway, Entourage, I thought it was a great show. I really loved the first few seasons. So interesting. And then season 6, it just got lame. And then the movie came out a couple years later, and I went to the movie theater to go see the movie because I'm like, I got to see this. And the movie was lame. So I lumped the movie in with the show. It just totally fell off a cliff. And it's really, really sad because I really loved it.
Okay, it did not make my top 10 or honorable mention, but I would attribute that to me not seeing the movie. So maybe if I saw the movie, I'd feel the same. I never got around to it. Like I wanted to see it, I just never did. And my wife was never into Entourage. Like she tried to watch it, and like I think like you said, you have to bring up the bro quotient. Like I think it's a TV show for guys. Like I've never heard a girl say, "Oh, I love Entourage." Like I've never heard any woman say this. But yeah, I think that might be it. And so like I think once you're in a long-term relationship and like the person you're with doesn't want to see the movie, you're kind of like, crap, how am I going to see this movie? Like, get away with it. So, that's why I never saw Entourage the movie. But I agree. Like the final season was not good. but I don't think like it was as sharp of a decline from the rest. But maybe the movie just kind of would emphasize how much worse it got. And to go back to you being called Turtle, Turtle got Meadow Soprano, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That's correct. So, that is true.
Well, there you go. There you go. So yeah, we'll have to do it. We'll have to talk about Whiskey Tango after the show, because I used to go there every Friday night in 2011, 2012, and 2013.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, so we used to just meet there, or like, and we used to like not even like 10 friends of mine and I used to just like go there and like not even say, oh, we're going to Whiskey Tango. We would just show up, and it was a great bar, but they really got hurt by Parks Casino opening. So yeah. Anyway, let's get back to the show. Yeah. All right, my number 8 it is Homeland. So another Damian Lewis show. Homeland season 1 was amazing. It actually made the cut as top 10 TV seasons of all time. Just this guy comes home, he's prisoner of war for a long time. You don't know if he's been turned, and there's this great mystery. Claire Danes is amazing, trying to like figure out if Damian Lewis is really a bad guy or if he's actually a hero. And season 1 is awesome, and season 2 is really good too. And then we kind of have a theme here with Damian Lewis leaving a show where he left Billions and Billions got worse. He left Homeland and Homeland just got horrible. Like, spent so much time on Claire Danes's like sanity issues, and it just got so tiresome. And this is a show I never finished either. I don't think I watched the final season just because it just got boring. Or it's like it was so exciting to start and just finished so poorly.
I never watched it, but like lots of people I know watched it, and pretty much everyone told me the same thing. I mean, what you're saying is pretty much the season 1 people just loved, thought it was great. My dad was into it, and then yeah, the totally fell off the cliff is sort of the kind of the general consensus.
I would say this, like we talked about how certain characters leaving the show make the show a lot worse, and we'll have more examples of that. Just want to like give Game of Thrones a shout out here because Sean Bean was killed off at the end of the first season. Spoiler alert. And so the show could have easily fallen apart, but George R. Martin wrote the book so well that didn't happen. Like the rest of the characters were able to carry the show after Bean died. Whereas like Damian Lewis leaves Homeland and Billions, and those shows get worse. So I think that should be acknowledged. So what's your number 7?
My number 7 is a show on Amazon called Man in the High Castle. Have you seen this show?
Yes, I watched the first season and I liked it, but I don't like, I didn't love it enough to continue. Like I thought it was good, but like not great. And just my wife didn't like it either too much. So that's like why we stopped watching it.
I love the premise of it. Just the whole idea of like, okay, what if the Germans had won World War II? Which historians say actually was much closer than we seem to, the idea of there being a predominantly German Europe was actually much more of a realistic possibility than many people realize. And so just the whole premise of it, it's a little far-fetched, but you're just like, you have no idea what's going on. And I think it's really good. All of a sudden these films are showing up and there's just this, I think this is a really cool, and being an American, just there's a sense of like American nostalgia kind of built into it that I loved. So I thought it was really good. I think the acting is pretty mediocre across the board, but the storyline was so fantastic that I was totally hooked. But that was it. Like eventually, like shows that are novel like that, like, okay, you need a really great twist to like keep everyone interested. And like the twist was, oh, this is a sci-fi show. They're actually like multiple dimensions and they're traveling between dimensions. Oh, I didn't realize what it was. Like once you realize at the end of season 2 what it is, there's no reason to keep watching. It's like, okay. So then seasons 3 and 4 were just terrible. Season 4 was, just god awful, so boring. And I just like, I was like laboring. It was like leg day. I don't know. Just like, that's the only way. I just like, I don't want to do this. Oh, but I have to, I guess. It's really sad because I really loved season 1, liked season 2, hated season 3 and 4.
Not a fan of leg day, huh?
No.
I don't like get why people just don't do it. Just like, if you hate it so much, just don't do it. Just like why are you like torturing yourself? Just
Well,
take
I
the
don't
day
work out
off.
at all. Let's be honest.
Okay.
I haven't worked out in like 7 years.
Fair enough. It's like
I
any
take
workout day.
I don't work out at all, so I'm overweight. And I don't care.
Okay, all right, so fair enough. Yeah, it's kind of hard to work out with kid now, but no, I actually like the sci-fi stuff, and like you mentioning that kind of makes me want to go back and watch it. And I did get the sense that there were different dimensions, because otherwise, like, the movies wouldn't make much sense. But I didn't get like why okay, Germany wins World War II, but like why would America be Germanized? I just like. Europe would be, but not like, why would America be? Like, there's no way Germany would come here and win anything. Not in a population that's like everyone is armed. Like, no one's invading America, by the way.
Right.
Like,
I think the premise was they dropped nukes. Like the Germans developed or atom bomb. The Germans developed the atom bomb sooner. Something happened in this world that the Manhattan Project didn't work out, and so the Germans had the atom bomb, dropped a couple bombs on major American cities, and that like wiped out, the U.S. government, and it made it easy for them to come in and take over. That's like the history of that dimension.
Okay. All right. Okay. I guess it makes sense. I don't know. I just never. I don't know why like Germany would occupy America. Like, I think it'd be way too difficult. Like America has difficulty enough like occupying like other small countries. Like, I just don't see Germany like doing that. It's not like, that's part of the reason why I just never bought into that show. But I mean, if all the nukes, then maybe, I don't know. Anyway, my number 7's The Office. It's my other sitcom here, and it follows the theme with like the best actor / character leaving. Steve Carell, he leaves the show and it just falls apart. Like, they just try to replace him. I thought that was the biggest mistake, is like they try to replace this guy. They tried it with Andy Bernard. They brought in they brought in a couple of characters, like Will Ferrell was brought in. What'd you say?
I didn't know that. That's what.
Yeah, Will Ferrell was in there a little bit. The guy from The Blacklist, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. They brought him in. The couple characters, they try to make a new Michael Scott, and it just didn't work. I thought that like they should have just done the show without a Michael Scott and just like focus on the other characters. And I think it would have done well, but like they also screwed up the other characters. Like, they try to force like marital issues between Jim and Pam when they're supposed to be like the perfect couple. Whereas like they should have focused more on another couple. And I guess they try to do that with Andy and Aaron, but I don't know. They just didn't. I don't think they worked nearly as well as Jim and Pam. Like, Jim and Pam were iconic. I thought they should have done something different there. There's some nice episodes in the final couple of seasons. It wasn't all bad. The finale was pretty decent, but overall, that show just like that show really declined when Steve Carell left, and kind of you can't really be too surprised by that.
Yeah, I've only watched a handful of episodes of The Office. I've always thought it was okay. I'm in the minority. Funny though, you mentioned that, because I was looking at other people's lists. The Office was also a very frequently mentioned, not as much as How I Met Your Mother, but the Office got mentioned several times. So I keep telling myself at some point I'll go back and watch a bunch of The Office. Maybe I'll get to it. Maybe I won't. We'll see.
You should. I mean, I thought it was great before Carell left. James Spader was the guy I was thinking of. So yeah, they brought him in too. It just didn't work. So yeah, definitely you should definitely watch The Office until Steve Carell leaves, and then just leave along with him, like we all should have done. What's your number 6? My
number 6. Speaking of Mr. Spader, my number 6 is Blacklist.
Okay.
I loved this show when it first started. I thought it was really well done. I thought the premise was good. I thought the intrigue build. So, a lot of shows you have like a premise and a mystery. There's like kind of one overarching question you're asking yourself. And eventually they answer that question. And sometimes they do it at the end of the series. Sometimes they do it along the way. But in this series, it was like, oh, there's one overarching question. Who is this character? But then like other questions kind of pop up throughout seasons 2 and 3. Really, it was from 1 through 3. There's other questions that kind of sub questions that arise. Okay, who's her mom? and then you later for okay, her mom's not who we thought she was. I mean, there's all sorts of things, but then like so many things happen and so many other questions come up that you kind of just get like, okay, what? I can't even. You know that meme where the guy's like from that show, he's got like all this crazy strings going everywhere. Can't remember the name of it. Like you just like. What? Like it's too convoluted. There's too many things happening. There's too many side plots, too many themes. And then like the acting is like just mediocre. So like the plot's got to keep me, and the plot is it's too confusing. I don't want to have to think before I watch a TV show that hard. That's just average in acting, and just like blah, I got bored with it and I just turned it off, and so I can't stop caring.
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is the meme you're thinking
That's
of.
Right.
Yeah, great show, by the way. Yeah, with the Blacklist, I watched I think most of the first season. I kind of got bored because I just hate procedurals, and you're right that they had some overarching stuff, which I try to get into, but I just thought the procedural aspect of it kind of dwarfed everything. It's like every episode would be called like the Juggler or like the Riverman or like whatever weird name they came up for this bad guy, right? And it's like I just don't like that stuff. I think like I like what Dexter did, where like focusing on one bad guy for a whole season. I thought that should have been what the Blacklist did. I can understand like the whole procedural thing because like people can't some people just can't tune in every week, and like you don't want to lose people. So I get that, but like that just like bothers me. I just can't get behind it. And I liked how TV shows now have fewer episodes where like you could have maybe focused on one bad guy and just like built up this character like rather than just have him for one episode. But that's just me.
Yeah. I like the premise of it initially. Yeah, but it fell apart pretty quickly. So it's my number 6.
Always disappointing because I always like kind of wanted to get back into it, but then I just thought about how procedural it was. But now you saying that it jumped the shark, I don't want to get into it. So my number 6 is Riverdale. It was mentioned earlier by Patrick. So yeah, I think I mentioned this as an honorable mention in my top 10 TV seasons of all time. The first season of Riverdale was awesome. There was a murder mystery, and it's based on the characters from Archie. So I like it was just really well done. First season was terrific. I'd highly recommend it for anyone just to get in the first season, but don't watch past that because there's some weird stuff that happens after the first season. There's like this whole I think it was the second, I can't remember if it was the second or third season. It was based on the game of Dungeons and Dragons, and like the characters and the whole school was playing Dungeons and Dragons for some reason, and like for some reason like it came to life, and like the bad guys from Dungeons and Dragons would like try to kill the kids in the school. It just got so weird. Like I like and then like you'd have like these are high school characters, by the way. You'd have like one of the girls from high school. She opened up just like this underground bar. It's like you're not even 18 yet. Like how are you doing this? Like it's just like so it's just so stupid. It just like I don't know. It just got so bad and so unrealistic. Whereas like the first season was so great. I just feel like they didn't plan anything beyond season 1, and then once they're like, oh, like we have a lot of viewers, let's make more seasons. And they're like, okay, let's we don't have any ideas. Let's just see what sticks. It just didn't work. So Riverdale season 1, definitely watch it, and then don't watch anything else.
I just Googled it because I never watched it. It's on the CW. Is that right?
Well, it's on Netflix. So
on Netflix. Okay. Yeah. All right. So that's I'll have to mark season 1 down. Yeah, that's funny. That didn't make any of the lists that I saw today. So,
yeah, it was pretty bad. This is another show my wife and I stopped watching. Luke Perry is in it too. And he was in the honorable mentions of 90210. Luke Perry is the father of the main character of Archie, and he obviously died in real life. So like in the first episode of season 4 was the final episode we watched, where the main character had to get his body from another town and bring it home, and like it was so tedious for him to, I can't even remember what he had to do, but it was like he had to jump through hoops to get his dad's body, and like you think that would be like the interesting story arc, but it was just so dumb. Like it was just like my wife and I are like, what are we watching here? Like, why are we watching this? We just stopped. Luke Perry is one of the highlights of the show. Like, he was really good. So obviously, I'd assume it got even worse after he passed away.
It's funny.
Yeah. Okay. What's your number 5?
My number 5 is a TV show. I don't know if you've even heard of this. The show is not super popular. A show on Hulu called Blind Spot. You ever seen this show?
I don't think so.
Okay, so the basic premise is they're not FBI. They're some other government agency, or they're NSA, I think. Some government agency, American, or maybe there's like it's a government agency actually doesn't really exist. It's like a secretive government agency that's like super, super secretive. They do these special ops anyway. And like there's not a lot of well-known actors in the movie or in the TV show, but it's like pretty good acting. And like, but basically the premise is she wakes up one day and her whole body's tattooed. She doesn't know why. And she doesn't remember anything. And so like her memory's been wiped. And so basically she was kidnapped. You later find out she was kidnapped, and her people, they tattooed clues on her, but you don't know why they did it. And so the whole show is trying to figure out why was she tattooed? Who did it? Why would they do it? She's not who you thought. Then you think she's actually this person. It's actually this different government agency. And there's all these it's very intriguing. It's sort of got some comparable similarities to like Prison Break season 1. So season 1 of Blind Spot and season 1 of Prison Break, there's some like similar elements. And then there's in some ways it's pretty different, but there's some really good action scenes. Season 1 is actually very entertaining, and then it completely falls apart. Season 2 is like, once you figure out the premise of like, once the major question is answered, it's like, okay, now you need to give me like another hook. And another hook was just like, oh, there's more to the tattoo than you realize. It's like, oh, okay. And then it's like, and then she wakes up in season 3, I'm like, oh, she has more tattoos and she's in Thailand. Like, you're like, what this is so stupid. It's just so dumb. And my wife and I are just like, okay, we're done with this show. But season 1 I thought was very entertaining.
I think the worst episode of Lost had Jack go to Thailand and get a tattoo. So maybe I don't know if that happened after, and like they got an idea from Lost, or like they took the worst episode as an idea from Lost, or if that came before and Lost was like, oh, like let's do Jack, let's get Jack having a tattoo from Thailand. So interesting that they have that correlation. My number 5 is True Blood. So this is also mentioned in the comments, and Were Panthers, as Patrick says here. They introduced Were Panthers. Like, first of all, like season 1 was premises like the vampires come out of the coffin, not the closet, the coffin, whatever. So like the vampires, like they reveal themselves as being real. And so there's like, people are obviously like threatened by this, as you would imagine. I think that's very realistic. Of like, if suddenly we learn that like there are vampires, we're like, okay, like what is going on here? Let's stake them, So I think that like was a real aspect of it. And they showed the dynamic between that. And then the main character girl falls in love with one of the vampires. And like, there's that. And like first season I thought was awesome. Like we used to have viewing parties of both Game of Thrones and then True Blood, because True Blood used to come on HBO after Game of Thrones season was over. And so like people used to come to my house and watch True Blood, like fewer people in the Game of Thrones, but still like we did have like a lot of interest, and like people really liked the show. And I thought it was great for a while. Season 1 was awesome. Season 2, not as good, but still like pretty good. And then like season 3, they introduced werewolves, and it's like, okay, like it's kind of dumb. Like, why would there also be werewolves too? And then like they introduced were panthers after that, and like were panthers are like meth heads, like they're werewolves except they're meth heads. So I guess that's why they're were panthers. Like it was so dumb. And then they had like fairies, and like they like, it just got so dumb. It's just so convoluted. Just like sticks to the humans versus vampires. Like that was so strong. It was really good. And like the first season there was like there's like a mass killer of vampires. You didn't know who it was. Like that was the whole mystery. Really well done. And then they just completely jumped the shark. So True Blood definitely belongs in the top 10.
So when True Blood was first come out, I was dating a girl at the time who, spoiler alert, I did not marry her. I married someone else. But I was dating a girl who was like super into True Blood. And so I felt like obligated. And like, I liked it. I think it was good. There's something about vampires. Just like, I'm like, I just put your teeth away. I don't know. Like, I don't like. I remember like I watched like Twilight with her as well. I was just like, I just hate the idea of vampire. I don't want to think about you. I don't want to think about it. Anyway, I just got to. So I watched a bunch of it. I thought it's actually a really good show. In a lot of ways, I definitely understand that. There are just certain types of categories that I'm just like, I just like don't want to deal with.
Well, I think there's a major difference between Twilight and True Blood. Like
that's true.
True Blood was actually like well written and like the characters are good. Like whereas like Twilight, you have this. I don't know how old he was. Like 180-year-old vampire still in high school for some reason. like why are you in high school as a 180-year-old? And like why do you sparkle? Why did the vampires play baseball? Like why were they really good at baseball? Why they need a thunderstorm to play baseball? Like they were waiting for a thunderstorm to play baseball. Like this is one of the dumbest movies I've ever seen in my life. Like why do people like this crap? It's just so stupid. I did a whole Jerks of the Week on it. It was like the top 10 dumb things from Twilight, and I actually wanted to do the similar article for the second movie, but I just can't get into it. It's like I wasted too much time in my life. I just can't do it.
I don't hate this enough. I don't care about it. I just don't. I can't. It's so good.
Maybe I don't know when I did that. Maybe I'll do like a 10-year anniversary redux of it, or actually it's probably longer than 10 years already. I think I was still living with my parents before I moved into my own house. When I did, when I watched True Blood, when I watched Twilight. So it's definitely been longer than 10 years. So maybe I'll do a 20-year rendition of it and watch the second movie. Is it long enough? 20 years, right? Exactly. All right. So what's your number 4?
My number 4 is kind of a ridiculous TV show, but I just loved it, was so entertained by it, and then got so bored with it. Duck Dynasty. This show was so good for one season because it was just so dumb and random. These guys are filthy rich multi-millionaires, but they're just like rednecks with beards and just they're like conservative. Everyone hates these guys, and he's got the wife who looks like she just like put 14 pounds of makeup on her face. Meanwhile, these guys are making money. Like they're just like not the kind of people that you ever expect to get rich, and they do. And it was great. The show is just very entertaining. So stupid. I think my IQ dropped at least 1 point every time I watched it. So I lost about 30 IQ points probably over the course of but then like eventually it gets a point where you're just like, you watch an episode, you're like, oh, it's great. And you watch another episode, you're like, well, that's kind of the same thing happened in the first one. Okay. And then like you get to episode 30, you're like, it's pretty much the same episode just being redone over and over again. And then you're just like, okay, this is dumb. And it gets like terribly boring, and it just progressively and they just never figured out a way to keep it compelling. And it's just terrible. But season 1 of Duck Dynasty is just one of the most ridiculously entertaining just adventures you could ever go on.
Okay. I've never seen it. I've obviously heard of it. I've never seen the show, so I can't speak to it at all. But I'll take your word for it that it gets repetitive. Like if you were to ask me like what do you think Duck Dynasty is, like how do you think the show flows? I'm like, isn't it the same thing over and over again? So I think you're probably right about that.
I don't know why I love this show. I'm a little bit embarrassed that I like it so much. It's so dumb. You watch it, you're like, why is this entertaining? Why do I want to watch this right now? It's so stupid.
Yeah, I can't. I don't think I'll ever get into it, but I'll take your word for it. My number 4, and I'll be shocked that this is not in your top 3. It is Westworld. This made our top 10 TV seasons of all time. Season 1. Some of the greatest twists I think in TV history. Not only like that quote, what door could be like maybe the greatest twist in TV history, and yet it wasn't even the greatest twist in that season, because once you found out who the Man in Black was, that kind of like blew your mind. Yep. So such an interesting show, like great concept, extremely well acted, love the characters, so intriguing. I just think that show was amazing in season 1. And then season 2 happened, and then he got into Maeve, and she wanted to find her kid, and then there were Native Americans, and like then the guy they just like it's like it got so bad, and then like it just got so bad. We didn't even watch season 3. We had no interest. And in fact, like I told my wife that like, oh, Westworld season 3's on, and she's like, what happened season 2? There were like Maeve had a kid and she was trying to find her kid, and there were Native Americans, right? I'm like, yes, I think that's it. And so Anthony Hopkins wasn't in season, he was barely in season 2. I don't even know if he was in season 3, but like there's one good thing about season 2, was like where they revealed the guy kept waking up over and over again and reliving his life. That was like interesting in season 2. But otherwise, like season 2 was like pretty boring. And then even like they tried to do a twist, it wasn't even interesting. They tried to do another twist, I should say, like it wasn't interesting. And then I didn't watch season 3, and I think it's canceled now, right? So there won't be season 4. So that the show definitely fell apart.
They did a season 4, and then they canceled it.
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
I didn't watch it. But, okay. You won't have to wait long to hear my Westworld thoughts. I'll come back to that.
Okay, yeah, as I suspected, it's in your top 3. So speaking of your top 3, what's your number 3?
My number 3, I actually wrestle between 2 and 3, but my number 3 is The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead was so good. There were, I can't remember which season I put in my, I think you can make an argument for any of the first 4 seasons as being the best. I really loved season 1 and season 4. And then we talk about the greatest scenes ever. When Shane reanimates, there are other scenes in the show. They're just phenomenal. The premise of the show was good. And I don't even, again, I think zombies are in the category of vampires for me. I'm like, I hate this. This is stupid. I don't want to deal with it. But like Walking Dead was the way it was written, the way the story was told, it was different. I think that maybe because of the origins of it is a graphic novel. Like I wonder if because of the way it was written, it's not like a typical zombie type show or zombie movie that's written by B- Hollywood writers. There's actually some like creativity in the way the story's unfolding. There's a little bit of mystery. Every season kind of has its own kind of goal. Then eventually it's just sort of like, okay, I just got bored with it. Okay, what? Every season something wrong is happening, and like something, and then it kind of falls apart, and then so I stopped watching after season 4, and several people were like, "Oh, the show's back, Negan." So okay, I went back and I watched because like people were like, "The show got great again." Because then so I went and watched Negan. Like, oh, you're right, it does kind of reinvigorate the whole franchise. But then like that only lasts a few episodes, and it kind of falls apart again. So I stopped watching. My wife has actually finished the show, and she kind of just like told me everything that happened. One night we were in bed and we were like going to bed, falling asleep, and she's like, "Just tell me what happened." She's like, "We have to watch it." I'm like, "I don't want to watch it. Just tell me what happened." It's like I hate the show. So she spent like 2 minutes and like told me the whole rundown. So anyway, great show. Completely fell off the map, as you would say. Jumped the shark. My top 3, number 3 show, Walking Dead.
Yeah, it's in my top 3 as well, so I'll get to that in a second. But I wanted to get to something you mentioned. I think it's very interesting where you said, "Oh, I hate vampires. I don't want to watch vampire stuff. Oh, I hate zombie stuff. I don't want to watch zombie stuff." There was a time where this didn't exist, where someone invented, "Oh, like let's dead people reanimate. Let's write about that. We'll call them zombies, or like we'll have these human like blood sucking humanoid things, and they'll have sharp teeth, and they can't walk in the sunlight. Let's call them vampires." Like people invented this once upon a time.
Right.
When is the last time we had like something like super popular that was invented by either movie or TV show? Because like even Game of Thrones is guilty of this. They had the whole dragon motif, like, and they also have zombies. If you think about it, so like they even like George R.R. Martin, one of the best writers in our current time, like he even reused this kind of stuff. Like when's the last time we had something super popular that was invented like recently? Like I can't think of anything.
It's actually a really good point.
Yeah, like why is this stuff always reused? I just, it feels like so uncreative, and it kind of goes to something that Tim Pool from the Timcast show, he mentions this sometimes, he sometimes asks questions. He's like, when was the last Christmas song made? I think it was Mariah Carey's "All I Want for Christmas Is You," right? And like that was like '90s. That was like early '90s. Like why haven't we had a new Christmas song in 30 years? Like it just feels like cultural stagnation where like people don't come up with any new ideas and they try to just rehash everything. Like every like quote unquote new Christmas song is a remix of an old one.
Right.
So like what like it feels like every show, okay, we have vampires. We're gonna do our vampires this way. Okay, maybe some can walk in the sunlight, like, and they're gonna sparkle. But like it's still vampires, or like zombies, they're gonna run fast. But they're still zombies, like they're gonna be fungi zombies, but they're still zombies. Like why haven't we thought of new things? I don't get it.
That's actually a really good point. I don't have an answer, but I think it's a great question. I think maybe that's one of the intrigues of Westworld, actually, is that Westworld, robots is still like robots have been a thing for a while, but there's not like a lot of like androids is still maybe not anymore, but the idea of androids is relatively new, right? Like, maybe there's a bunch of shows, but like I feel like that's a relatively new. Now it's not new, like if show, but I feel like that kind of gave Westworld a little bit of an edge in being unique.
Yeah, they had that in Battlestar Galactica too. Androids, Data from Star Trek, Android. But like that's actually going to exist. Like we have like artificial intelligence now,
right?
And I feel like we're going to have like real androids like sometime in the near future. But like obviously, like they're never going to be vampires or. No, I mean, like you might walk around like Kensington and deem that there are zombies, but it's like, but like actual like dead people reanimating is not going to happen. So like, but still, like that. My point remains like, why haven't we thought of something new? And like the person who thinks of something new that becomes mainstream is going to be a billionaire. I would suspect so. Maybe if you're listening, or maybe one of us will come up with something cool.
I mean, J.K. Rowling with the Wizards is, it's Wizards. It's not new. But,
I would say like it was never mainstream, maybe. And then she's a billionaire, so like that just goes to my point. Like she came up with something new and became a billionaire. But even that was the first book was in the late '90s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So it's been almost a quarter of a century. Right. Since we've had something new and mainstream, that's I don't know.
That's a very good point.
Yeah. All right. So speaking of things that are mainstream and reused, we have superheroes, and now it's my number 3 is Heroes. And you mentioned that earlier. Hero season 1 was amazing. We talked about that in the top 10 TV seasons of all time. I remember having we used to have like active forums on the website, and we used to have like a subsection where people would just talk about heroes. And I remember
so good.
At NBC it used to be like 8 o'clock used to be Chuck, and then 9 o'clock used to be Heroes. And I remember like sitting through Chuck waiting for Heroes. Like Chuck was a good show, don't get me wrong. Like it's one of my favorite underrated TV shows of all time. But like I remember like waiting through Chuck, and then like eventually it became the opposite. I used to I used to look forward to Chuck, and then I was like, I guess I'll watch Heroes too. It just became like that, and I think it's like season 2 wasn't as bad as seasons 3 and onward. I think once like they gave everyone superpowers, it became stupid, and like once characters couldn't die, they kind of made that stupid. Like there's no threat. Like you knew they were just always going to bring back the characters, so that was dumb. And then they had the circus sideshow people. Yeah, Teabag from Prison Break was like the main guy, and it's a shame because I think he's a phenomenal actor, and I was happy to see him on the show, but they just really wasted him. That whole final season was just terrible, and I can't even remember it vividly. I just remember being super bored by it, and I remember thinking this is the final episode. I'm like, I'm glad Heroes is over. I couldn't watch another season.
Yeah, I already talked about it, but it's the season 1 was so good, and then it just went down, and just it was so bad at the end. There's a lot of shows in that category, but Heroes season 1, I had Heroes on my 9th on my list, but as we've talked about it probably deserved to be higher on my list.
Okay. Well, we're up to your number 2. I'm going to guess what it is, and I think it's Westworld. Am I correct?
That is correct. It is Westworld. I think we obviously know what number 1 is going to be. Westworld, you talked about it. Westworld is just, I season 1 is as good. I mean, it's really great season. I talked about it when we did our best seasons ever. I can't remember where I ranked Westworld, but I think it was in my top 5. It was so good. Season 2 was still like it was so good. There were some good parts. It just got too convoluted. There's too many things. It was too hard to keep track of, and it was like they were trying too hard to repeat the brilliance of season 1. And it's just like when you try to redo it, it just doesn't. When you come up with a novel concept, replicating it's almost impossible. And so you got to build on it, not try to replicate it. And they just couldn't figure that out. You got too convoluted. And then season 3 was just terrible. And we just like my wife and I were like, I think we were like in episode 3 or 4. We're just like, I think she's like, do we have to watch this? Like, no, we don't. We're not obligated. We can do whatever we want with our free time. Like, we don't. And so I think that was it. Because she's just like, and then there is a season 4 that I never actually watched. Yeah, it was season 3 is as bad as any TV shows you can think of, which is remarkable because season 1 is as good as you can think of, which is why it's my number 2. There's only one TV show ever, in my opinion, that fell off the cliff worse than Westworld.
Yeah, we know what that is, and it's my number 1 too. But I think you're totally right that rather than trying to replicate what you already did, I think it's best to reinvent yourself, because like there is a way they could have replicated it, like if they had like new crazy twists, if they had Anthony Hopkins available for the whole season, like they could have replicated it. But like I feel like once they were writing the show, the second season, and maybe like rereading what they wrote, I thought they should have came to realize this is not good. Let's scrap this whole thing. Let's try to reinvent the wheel here and try something completely new. Like I think that's the way they should have gone. And they didn't, and they kind of paid the price, because it's kind of crazy how that show just completely disappeared because the fact that like the season 1 was so like lauded by everyone, like, it was just so amazing. Everyone gave it high praise, like everyone loved it. And then it's just gone now. Like and I don't know anyone who's watched season 4. I don't know. I didn't even know there was a season 4. But like season 3, like I know people who didn't even watch that because season 2 was so bad. I don't even know what season 3 was about. I don't even want to like wonder. And like, it's funny that it's funny that you and your wife kind of like were kind of asking yourself, like, do we have to do this? It's like the leg day. Like, do I have to do this? Right. So yeah, like once you find yourself asking yourself, like, do I have to watch the show? It's just probably just best to just quit.
That's right. You're not obligated. I'm not obligated. I don't have to watch this.
Right. Yeah. You don't have to. No one's forcing you. Right. Right. So my number 2 is The Walking Dead. So I thought the show was like this show was so great. They made like a Talking Dead show after it. Like,
I loved that too. Oh.
Yeah, I loved it too. Yeah, like everyone was crazy about the show. Everyone watched it. Like I feel like we would had viewing parties for this too if it wasn't during the football season. But still, like it's just a phenomenal show. Like I thought the first season was amazing. It's only 6 episodes, but like it left you on like pins and needles. Like and it felt like every character could have died. Like maybe not Rick, but like every other character was expendable. And it was just like so tense. You didn't know what was going to happen. And then they made it to the CDC in Atlanta, and the guy whispered something in his ear, and like you're like, oh, what did he whisper? Like, what's going on? Like, because he knows something like crazy that's like that just too wild that he can't say out loud in front of everyone. Like and like Rick's reactions, like oh crap, like you're like, oh man, what is going on here? And then season 2 was slow because they were at the farm, but still, like when they got to the prison and then they introduced the governor for the first time, that was great. And then the governor got bad. Like they tried to they kept the governor around, I thought, too long. But then you're right, like they kind of got a second spark, or even a third spark, I think you could say, with Negan. Those Negan episodes, like the first 5 or 6 of them were terrific. Like that brought back the pins and needles again for me.
Right.
Where it's like, okay, he killed off two like prominent characters, like, and he felt like he could have killed off more characters too. And I thought they should have done that. I thought he should have killed off a third character as well. And I thought that would have kept the show even more tense as it went along. But then they did the same thing with Negan that they did with the governor. They kept him around way too long. He's almost like a cartoon villain at that point. Like the governor the first time they defeat him, like he runs off, and it's like I kind of expected him to say, like, like, I don't know if you watched the Super Mario Brothers Super Show, but like every time like Mario and Luigi defeat Bowser, he's like, I'll get you next time, plumbers, like, and then he goes away. Like I felt like the governor almost would have said that. It's like, I'll get you next time, Rick, and like he just runs off. And like I feel like Negan almost would have said the same thing. It's like enough already with that. And then they did the same thing I talked about with The Last of Us, where it's like different groups, like the Whisperers, like everyone else, like the Firefly. I don't know. I'm just like talking at this point, but like why do these weird groups emerge? Like the people in the junkyard. It's just so stupid. Like I don't even know what they're called, but like why are these people like why are there illiterate people in the junkyard? Like how do these people not have died yet? Like I don't get it. It just got so bad. And then there were stormtroopers in the final season, which was like, that was it for me. Like I made it to the final season. I just kept impressive. Yeah, because I used to have dinner with my parents like once a week back when I lived by myself, just like go to my parents' house, have dinner, and then we watched some TV shows, and we'd watch The Walking Dead because my parents liked it a lot. And so we made it to the final season, and there were stormtroopers, and I'm like, this is so stupid. I'm like every time I was there, I was like, what do you guys want to watch? Please don't say Walking Dead. Please don't say Walking Dead, because they're stormtroopers. And my dad was like, okay, let's watch Walking Dead. I'm like, no, stormtroopers. So yeah, I think I watched the end of the first half of the final season, and I never came back to the second half. Not sure why, but I think I finally convinced my parents to stop watching it, like, thankfully. So I don't know how it ended. So no spoilers for the guy who requested no spoilers.
Good.
But I don't even want to know how it ended. I was like, any show that introduces stormtroopers in a non-space series, just like I can't get behind.
So this was like, it's funny when you get married, you're watching shows with your spouse, so usually, right? That's for the most part. So it's like whatever she wants to watch, or we have to agree. But so I'm like, I got The Walking Dead. I'm just like, I can't do it. This is she, but she wanted to keep going. I'm just like, I don't want to. So she would watch it whenever I was like blocking off time to work on my PhD, reading them. People don't know I'm a PhD student. So I'm like, okay, I got to go do reading. I got to write a paper. I got to go do some research. Like that was like her Walking Dead time. So it's like, I'm doing PhD homework and she's doing Walking Dead. And a couple times I was like in the room reading, like sitting on the couch reading, but like I had not seen like a bunch of episodes. And so I'm like kind of distracted by the show. I'm like, well, what happened? Like, she's like, no, I can't. She like refused to explain it to me. I'm like, but I can't enjoy this episode that I'm here being distracted by unless I know what happened in the last 10 episodes that I didn't see. So then she's like, fine. And then she like explained it. So every time she'd watch, she'd like catch me up. And so anyway, and then finally one night in bed after she watched the last episode, she's like caught me up. That was it was so bad. It got so bad.
Did it end as stupidly as I think it would have?
It's kind of anticlimactic.
Okay.
Okay. No, sorry to anyone. That's okay. At least my wife described it. It just felt like, oh, that's it. Okay.
Okay. Well, no spoilers, but yeah, maybe one day I'll find out what happened. But anyway, we're down to our number one, and I suspect it's the same TV show. So do you want to reveal what that is?
My number one is King of the Hill. Just kidding. Not even close. I never watched King of the Hill. It's Game of Thrones, and it makes me sad.
Yep.
We've talked about this a bunch of times. If anyone who's listened to previous episodes knows, I mean, the first few seasons of Game of Thrones is arguably the greatest TV show of all time. Sopranos, Wired, Breaking Bad, there's The Lost. But really, if anyone who says Game of Thrones is the greatest TV show of all time, like if they're thinking about the first 4 seasons, I'm like, okay, it's hard to argue with that. And then if someone were to say, hey, the last 2 seasons of Game of Thrones is the worst television we've ever seen. Yeah, that's probably true. Like I think it could be that bad. And it makes me sad. We got robbed, cheated of what could have or should have been. That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, my number one's Game of Thrones as well. So yeah, the first 4 seasons, like you said it perfectly. Like if someone wants to call it the best TV show of all time for the first 4 seasons, they can. Even the first 6 seasons, like seasons 5 and 6 had some flaws. Like you see stuff like propping up, like some mistakes, but season 6 still had Hold the Door. It still had Burning of the Battle of the Bastards, Burning of the Sept, the reveal of Jon Snow, who he is. So season 6 has some good stuff. It did have some bad stuff too. And I thought like the first hint of that was Lady Stoneheart not being revealed. And I thought that, okay, the woman who would have played Lady Stoneheart was in another TV show. It lasted 2 seasons. So after season 6, she would have been available for season 7. And I mentioned this before, but D&D, the people, the Bainoff and Weiss, the guys who made the like produced the show or directed the show, they hinted at some great reveals, something they've been planning since season 3. And I was like, okay, that has to be Lady Stoneheart, right? It kind of aligns with season 3. And the woman would be available now. And I really thought the first scene of season 7 was going to be Lady Stoneheart. And like, I was like, I couldn't wait. Like, I was so excited. And then we didn't see it. And then finally we saw what the reveal was, and it was a zombie polar bear. And maybe this was their attempt to make something new for the mainstream. We're like, we've done vampires and zombies, but never zombie polar bears. So maybe it'll be a thing. And like, no, it's not. So yeah, we had zombie polar bears. We had the stupid idea of them trying to get the zombie from beyond the wall so they can show Cersei for some reason, even though it wouldn't matter. Like, why would Cersei? Well, first of all, why would Cersei send the men when she's way down south? And second, like, what are Lannister men going to do against the zombie army? It didn't make any sense at all. Yet you had the characters getting dumbed down. You had Tyrion, who's supposed to be the smart sibling of the Lannisters. He was outsmarted by both Lannisters. Jamie, who had this great redemption arc, including that one great scene in the bath with the tall blonde one. I was drawing a blank here. Yeah, so they had Brienne. So they had that like phenomenal scene, and you can see like that they're building a redemption arc, and then the fact that he left Cersei and went up north to fight with everyone else against the zombie army. It didn't really make much sense, like for the fact that like he wouldn't have made that much of a difference. I thought that either he would have to defeat the Night King, or he would have to bring like some troops with him. I thought that would have made more sense, but still, like the fact that he went north to kind of and he left Cersei, I thought like that kind of strengthened his redemption arc. But then they just threw it all away in the final. Like in the end, he said, "I wouldn't care about people," and then he went to see Cersei again. It just like the Bainoff and Weiss just killed everything good that was good with the show. They made it so bad because they rushed to the end. And they just wanted to finish it to go to Star Wars, and it showed. Like George R. R. Martin said, he wanted 13 seasons. They didn't have enough time for it to breathe. Like everything felt rushed. There were no great conversations like we had in the first few seasons, like when Littlefinger and Varys meet like in the chamber where in front of the Iron Throne. And then you had that scene where you mentioned this before, where like Arya is listening in on Varys and Illyrio, like talking about like the wolf and the stag being the wolf and the lion being at each other's throats. He had like all this great dialogue and stuff like that, and none of it was present in the final 2 seasons. It was all rushed. It was like all like Daenerys like flies to get to Jon Snow within seconds. You had Gendry beating the world record for running like back to the wall. Like none of it made any sense. Like they even talked about how in the first episode Robert Baratheon said it took a month to get from King's Landing to Winterfell. And they spent the whole second episode on the road. Whereas like in the flash of like a quarter of the episode, they travel from like point A to point B. It just didn't make any sense. Game of Thrones was completely ruined. Enough so that you didn't even watch the spinoff of it. And we used to have we loved the show so much. We used to have like discussions about it every single episode. We talk about how it, and I used to have like my crackpot theories and whatnot, and I like we were so into it. Everyone was so into it. Like we had huge viewing parties, and it just fell apart. And like they had Ed Sheeran on, and season 7. Like that's how bad it got. So yeah, just I've no other words here. Just so disappointed in how it ended. I hope that George R. R. Martin sticks around for this new spinoff, and he's also around for Snow. They're going to do a new spinoff with Jon Snow, like going into the future with what he's going to do. I hope George R. R. Martin is there because I know Kit Harington's a huge fan of the books, and like he was even critical of Bayoff and Weiss. So I think if Kit Harington does it, I think and if George R. R. Martin's involved, I think it's going to be really good. So hopefully that is some sort of redemption, but it would take a lot to redeem it because I can't even recommend anyone watch it because I would have to say you can't watch the whole series. You have to stop at
season 6.
Season 6, yeah, like the episode after Battle of the Bastards. Just end it. I know, like you might think, oh, I have to keep watching. Just don't. Just stop it. Like you just can't do it because it'll ruin the show for you, and you won't be able to watch it ever again.
I agree with everything you just said, 100%. I do think, however, you are giving a little bit of a pass to Mr. Martin. George R. R. Martin, I don't think he gets blamed enough for this. Okay, so the producers of the show, I understand their situation. They want to move on to Star Wars. Okay, whatever. But when HBO started the show, when they signed the contracts, like in 2008, and then they finally did the production, and they was released in, I think it's 2011 when the first season was released, something like that, right? Mm-hmm. So they spent over 3 years producing the show. HBO, when they signed that deal, they assumed that the books would already been released. Like at that point, he had how many books had come out at that point in 2011?
The 5th one came out.
Right, it just came out.
The Dragons.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're thinking, okay, we're gonna each of our seasons are gonna map onto one of his books, and they just assumed books 6, 7, 8, whatever number of books he was gonna have was gonna come out. Like the writing was fantastic because they had a primary source material they were working with, they were pulling from. I mean, similar to Walking Dead, I guess in some ways. There's something outside of this that was brilliantly written. Well, if George R. R. Martin had finished the books and they had actually stuck with the books, which they changed some things, they left some characters out, but like the general trajectory of every season did fit the general trajectory of all the books. And the main points fit. I would imagine they would have kept that going. So had Martin actually finished the books the way he was supposed to, the way we thought he would have by this point, then they probably would have finished the show. Probably, maybe even if it peters out a little bit, maybe it's not as great as the early seasons, but it still would have been good enough to be entertaining. It would have ended well. We would have been fine. And we probably are all universally saying, hey, this is the greatest television show of all time. Like it's probably in the conversation, I think, right? If even if seasons like 7 and 8 were like 5 and 6, like if you have season, even if it goes to like season 9, let's say, like even if you go all to season 9 and the quality of like 7, 8, and 9 are comparable to the quality of 5 and 6, that television show is the greatest television show of all time from season 1 to 9, if that was the scenario. And so I blame the guys at HBO to some extent, for sure, but I think George R. R. Martin largely is to blame for this, and it's you gotta think it bothers him because his legacy is kind of really tarnished by this in a lot of ways.
It really is. I definitely think you're right. I mean, he should have finished the books. I personally think he's stuck. Like, do you ever think he's going to release book 6?
At this point, you got to say no. Right? I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I mean, he's released some chapters for the public, which kind of gives me some optimism. But like he released some of those chapters like 3 years ago, so yeah. It's like I think he's stuck. I think he's made too many characters and he's got too many open threads, and I feel like he's realized that he can't finish everything within 2 books. And I think he's probably thought, okay, I need 3 books. But yet I can't even finish book 6. So like I'm kind of stuck here. And like, so the other problem is that he's doing too many other things. Like he worked on the Game of Thrones TV show. He's worked on the spinoff. I don't know if he's going to do the other spinoff, but like, that's something else he might do. I know he does like a podcast and like where he talks about the Jets. Like, so like, I feel like he's just doing way too many things. And I think you're right that he definitely deserves some blame, but I put most of the blame on Bayoff and Weiss because like even without the source material, like you and I could have written the show better. Like just go back to our episodes where we talked about our theories on what would happen, and like my crackpot theories, and like you had theories. Like we could have sat down and written something better than Bainoff and Weiss did. Like I'm 100% sure of that, because at the very least we would have cared about the show, whereas they didn't, because they wanted to go to Star Wars, so they rushed through it. It's like I'm not saying like we're the best writers or anything,
right?
But like I think we could have done something that was at the very least mediocre, and that would have been so much better than what we saw in seasons 8, 7, and 8. My question to you is, like, say hypothetically, after season 6, there was some sort of writer strike, or like we kind of have now, and the writer strike lasted for a couple of years, and because of that, they couldn't get the actors back on the show, and they had to stop. They just couldn't do a season 7. They just never did. So like the show stopped at season 6 with the Battle of the Bastards and the burning of the set. Like that's the last thing we saw from Game of Thrones. Where would you rank Game of Thrones TV show wise in all of history if it just ended at season 6?
Oh man, that's a really great question. It might be number 1.
Yeah, I think so too.
It might be number 1. I mean, the other shows we've mentioned Breaking Bad, Wire, Sopranos. Sopranos might still be my number 1, but gosh, Game of Thrones might be right in the conversation. Might supplant it.
You know what we would be doing if it ended that way? We'd be like, oh, I wonder what would happen. We would have some debates, and I guarantee we would have some TV shows, like top 10 things that would happen in Game of Thrones season 7 if it ever happened. We would be doing that, and like we would, and I guarantee the ideas that we come up with would all be better than anything that Bainoff and Weiss did in season 7. The only good thing about season 7 was the visual, where we had the final scene where the dragon is burning down the wall. Like that was really cool to see. That was the only good thing about the final 2 seasons. Sadly, it's so horrible. Remember when Jamie drowned in water with his armor, and we all thought he died, but then he just crawled out, and somehow all the tens of thousands of the Thraki didn't see him.
Yeah,
the whole didn't make any sense.
Yeah, the whole thing didn't. It just didn't make sense at all. Yeah, I think I wonder. I keep thinking to myself, one day someone's going to come out with like a redo. Like there's going to be like like an alternate universe of the Game of Thrones, like an alternate ending, like someone somewhere, right? I don't know.
I think some of the actors would be down for it. Like I think Kit Harington would be 100% on board with it, because like I said, he's a huge fan of the book series, and he was critical of Bainoff and Weiss. So I don't think they could get every actor, unfortunately, but yeah, I think you can get around that. I think they could probably get enough. Can you imagine if they did a reboot? If HBO came out and said, we apologize for what happened season 7 and 8. We want to do a reboot. We can't get all the actors back. We can get a bunch of them. Can you, like, how hyped would you be if HBO said, gosh, like, oh, if HBO was like, we guarantee this will be good, like, please tune in. Like, I would be so thrilled.
Oh, I mean, I think everyone would be like, okay, like, I mean, the bar has been set so low, like, you don't like, so yeah, there were a couple guys, Ramsey was such a great character for such a long time. I mean, I thought he was nuts. And just like there were so many things you just wish would have happened. Like, anyway.
Yeah. Well, what could be? Maybe you and I should write a TV show sometime, and then I guarantee it'll be better than what they came up with season 7 and 8. So
easily.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for all the talking we do about TV shows, I feel like we should do that at some point. When you're not moving and doing PhD stuff, and when my website is stable, and and I'm not crazy with the kids running around, or eventually soon kids running around. So
multiple kids, that's right.
Yeah, it's gonna be rough, but maybe one day we'll do it. So anyway, yeah, that's our top 10. Thanks for everyone for listening, commenting. It means a lot. Please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. All that would be a lot. Kenny, do you have anything to plug?
I just wrote an article this week, thecapisfake.com. I finished the article about the differences between the NBA and NFL salary caps. So I'm now doing some additional research on NBA salary cap, and there's some really cool nuances. So I'm going to produce some kind of explanations on the NBA salary caps. Anyone interested on that? And then the other art, I wrote an article a couple years ago on the success rates of NFL hirings of coaches. And so I'm actually doing a little research project on that on the side. So I think that's going to be my article next week. I'm going to publish, trying to do one article a week. So this week was NBA, NFL, salary cap differences and explanations. Next week will be research project I did on the success rate of hiring retread coaches versus guys that have never been coaches.
Nice. I actually retweeted that article, the NBA versus NFL.
Nice.
So if you follow me on Twitter, you'll be able to see that a couple days earlier. So yeah, definitely check that out. I love your website, Kenny. It's really, really cool. So yeah, check that out. Check out walterfootball.com. We're going to be back on Monday to do, actually, we're not going to be, I don't know if we're going to be doing a review of my 2024 NFL mock draft because we are starting our season previews on actually tomorrow. It'll be up Friday morning. Nice. We're going to do the Kansas City Chiefs, work our way through the AFC West and the NFC West, and then so on and so forth until we get to the East. And then I'll have my Super Bowl 58 prediction. So yeah, it's about time to start our season preview. So looking forward to posting those. Kenny, this is a blast. We'll have to do another topic either next week or the week after, or whenever you're free. We'll have to do like worst characters and for great TV shows or something.
I love that one.
Yeah, we'll have to do that. But yeah, thanks everyone for listening, and I'll talk to you Monday.